back on the job.
Back in the job.
How are you?
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
This is a local storm team severe weather alert.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Chase Arnold. We apologize for cutting in on your regularly scheduled programming, but the Weather Service out of Memphis has issued a tornado warning until 2:45, and this does include northern portions of Poinsett County in northeastern Arkansas. So we're coming on the air this afternoon to make sure that folks in the path of this storm have that information so they can stay safe. As we take a look at the storm itself, the area we're keeping a close eye on here is just north of Wiener. Looks like this storm is primarily pushing off to the east, but just a little bit of a southerly component. So when they issued this warning, does include the cities of Wiener down into Harrisburg. Truman, really the area that we're going to be keeping a close eye on here over the next several minutes, as it looks like the storm is heading in your direction. I want to jump right into our radar tools here and show you what we're looking at. And as you can see, we have this area right here. Let me zoom in just a little bit, just south of Otwell there, but you can see this is our velocity. This is looking at the winds inside of our storm. So red would be winds moving away from the storm. Greens be moving toward the radar, I should say. This located in Millington. But you can see those reds and greens bumped up right next to each other. So that's where we're seeing that circulation. And like I said, this for the most part moving off to our east. So as we go over the next several minutes here, we're going to be looking, like I said, Truman on the back end of that warning there. But a lot of little cities here in the path of this storm. Mulligan down into Gullet, Greenfield there as well. Let me go back to our radar here and put this into motion so you can see what we're going to be dealing with here over the next several minutes here. As we zoom out, let me actually step off so I can get this into motion here and get you a little bit more information from the Weather Service as well. Because like I said, this was just issued a few moments ago. We wanted to get on air and make sure that you have the latest information. The storm, as I mentioned, moving east at about 30 miles an hour. So you certainly do have time if you are in the path of the storm to get inside and to get to a safe place. There is that storm motion, like I said, and that is going to be moving basically off to the east. So let me put a storm track on this so that you know exactly where this storm is going to be heading here in just the next several minutes. About 30 miles an hour. So there's the track right there. Truman. 253. So, like I said, if you're in the eastern portions of Poinsett County, you are going to be under this warning, but you certainly have time before the storm works its way into place. So 216 right now, you've got at least a half hour before it gets into Truman there. But like I said, you've got a lot of smaller towns here just north of Harrisburg that's going to be in the path of the storm. You're probably going to be seeing this in the next 15 minutes or so. So certainly want to make sure that you're aware of that. The good news right now, the way the storm is heading, looks like it's going to pass just north of Wiener there. So even though you are technically under this warning, at this point, not expecting you to be directly impacted by this storm. Same for Harrisburg. You're right on that line, but it looks like the storm is going to be heading more east than anything. So like I said, Truman, the one area we're going to continue to keep a very close eye on. And as we clear things out, let's take a look at some of our other radar products here. Because like I said, tornado warning is really the big thing right now. Radar indicated. I do want to stress that. What we're seeing right now with this warning is all on the radar. We have not had anybody on the ground yet confirm this, but certainly a serious situation. We do not want to take that lightly. Let's take a look at the hail with this as well, because before they issued that tornado warning, this area was under a severe thunderstorm watch, and this is radar indicated hail, and you can see those darker blacks there. That indicates some pretty good sized hail. The warning that we had previously had hail possibly up to about 1 3/4 inches, even 2-inch hail possible with this storm. So that can cause some serious damage there. Usually around 1 inch is when we start to get worried, but obviously that is well beyond that scope. But like I said, this is what we're really keeping an eye on right now. And this is this area of rotation here. Like I said, it's now northeast of Wiener, but heading due east. So like I said, areas from Mulligan down into Greenfield, you're going to want to get inside right now, get into your safe place, wherever that may be, whether it's a basement, first floor, away from windows, things like closets, interior bathrooms, things like that. But you want to make sure that before this gets to where you are, that you are in a place to where this is going to cause minimal damage. And then, like I said, as we continue to look off to our east, Husky, Maple Grove, Truman, all in the path of this storm. But if you're farther east, you still have a little bit of time to get in and to make sure that you're in a safe place. Let's continue looking at some of our radar products here. This is our shear rate. So this basically is just the radar monitoring the amount of spin that we have in these storms. And usually, you can see our gauge up there, we're on that top end of the week. If we saw any reds in here, that would certainly be a much better indicator of a tornado, something on the ground. But these values high enough to where we certainly do not want to take this lightly. So we continue to keep an eye on that. And then as we take a look at this product, this kind of puts everything together, that hail threat, that shear threat, and as you can see, certainly a large area here possibly being impacted by some of that larger hail just north of Wiener and McDaniel, up into Otwell there. And like I said, this is going to be moving east as well. So even if that tornado just ends up being radar indicated, this storm's still capable of some very strong winds and some very large hail. In fact, let's go to our regular velocity product here. And like I said, this is the area we're keeping an eye on as far as a tornado goes. But that bright green area right there, that indicates very strong winds. And sometimes straight line winds can be just as dangerous as tornadic winds if they've got some good speed on them there. So let's take a look. 50 miles an hour, what our radar is reading right now. It looks like we even have a stronger cell up here closer to Jonesboro. That's about 35, 40 miles an hour. But when this storm was first issued for a severe thunderstorm warning, on the radar, we were seeing 70, 80 mile an hour winds possible. So that has come down just a little bit. But this storm possessing everything that could cause problems for us there. Strong winds, large hail, and that threat for a tornado as well. So, like I said, if you're just joining us, let me go back to our radar here. If you're just joining us, we are under a tornado warning for northern portions of Poinsett County. This is going to go until 2:45, so we have about another 25 minutes there. But we want to stay on the air with you as long as this warning is in place. So if you are impacted by the storm, if you're in the path of the storm, we want to make sure you've got that latest up-to-the-minute information, especially if you're just joining us. I know sometimes people say that we repeat ourselves a lot. Well, that's because someone may not have been with us 5 minutes ago that's with us now. So we want to make sure you have that up-to-date, latest information so that you can stay safe. But like I said, right now, the area of the storm we're really keeping an eye on here is this little notch here. That's where that circulation is moving into the storm. That's where that air is moving in to feed this storm, so to speak. But the good news, like I said, if you live in Wiener, McDaniel, the storm now off to your east, so you're going to be okay. The storm moving away from you here. As you take a look, but like I said, we do have several areas ahead here. So let's put a new track on this. It's been a few minutes since we've done that, but let's go from the start of our circulation here and go out. This is only about 20 miles an hour, so actually let me take that off. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can put a better track on it here. And like I said, 30 miles an hour, so you certainly have time to get to a safe place here. But as we take a look, Truman, that's over here in the eastern portions of this warning, 3:05. So, like I said, you still have plenty of time there. But for areas like Cary, down into Harrisburg, I would say maybe 10, 15 minutes at the absolute tops. So you still have time to get to a safe place. But at this point, we want to make sure you at least know what is going on and you're making those preparations right now because this storm is continuing to move along. And at this point, doesn't show any real signs of slowing down. So let me click back off of this here and step off. Let's check with the Weather Service here because like I said, we have a great service with them. It's a chat room where we can talk with the Weather Service, emergency managers, storm spotters, anybody who would have relevant information in this case. And we do want to make sure that you are getting that latest information. Right now, we are talking about, looks like KAIT, that's one of the stations up in Jonesboro. They received a viewer photo of a wall cloud. So that would be kind of that last step before you get a tornado. That would be the lowering of that base there of that thunderstorm. And usually that's where a tornado spawns from. So certainly we have the visual indicators there of a potential tornado. And like I said, we certainly have those indicators on the radar of a potential tornado. Let's go back to some of those radar products there. Like I said, we're keeping a very close eye on this because this is just going to be part of a larger trend as we go through the rest of the day. Most of the Mid-South under a severe thunderstorm warning until 9 o'clock tonight. Wind and hail really going to be the main concerns with any storms we see, but there's also, as you can see there, that tornado threat. So let me zoom in here. As you can see, this is the area that we're keeping an eye on. There's that center of rotation, and that is moving right towards Gullet and Greenfield. So if you live in those areas, you probably have 5, maybe 10 minutes before that storm moves into your neck of the woods. So I want to make sure you are inside, you are in your safe place, because the storm, like I said, continues to keep moving on to the east. We are getting reports. I'm trying to see if it's in this area here out of Poinsett County, Waldenburg. Reports of ping-pong-sized hail. That's about 1.5 inches in diameter. So like I said, obviously the tornado is our #1 concern here, is that center of rotation now moving just a little bit more to the east there. But as we take a look, we have certainly several threats that we're keeping an eye on this afternoon. Here's our hail tracker. So like I said, we're seeing some pretty heavy hail activity with the radar from Mulligan up into Otwell. You're not seeing it so much on the southern edge of the storm. So let me step back on screen here. So what we're noticing with that hail threat, it's not so much where the tornado is. There's where our center of circulation is and where we're keeping an eye on that potential tornado. But your hail core, your hail threat is going to be just north of that in this kind of main bulk of the storm there. And some of these darker purples here, certainly heavy rain, but this could be some hail mixing in there as well. Sounds like we do have some pictures, video from KAIT with this storm. So there is one of those hail reports that we received, and those are some pretty decent sized hail chunks. I would say just gauging that off of sitting in his hand, at least 1 inch in diameter, maybe a little bit larger. And it looks like this might be the picture of that wall cloud that we saw. And as you can see, especially on the left side of the photo there, there's all that clear sky, that light area, and then there's just a very pronounced kind of dark area kind of jutting out from the bottom of the storm. That would be the area that we're keeping an eye on for a possible tornado, and certainly the atmosphere conducive to maybe some weaker tornadoes today, but certainly something we want to keep a close eye on. There's another photo there, and that, not seeing anything too pronounced, but certainly some dark, ominous looking storms. So like I said, all of this part of a much bigger picture as we are expecting storms to continue throughout the day, becoming a little bit more widespread in coverage here. But let me, if I can, let me just step back here and kind of give you the big picture here, because as you can see, like I said, this is just one storm. The rest of the Mid-South pretty quiet at the moment, but what we're expecting is for these storms to start building in area and then moving in later on this afternoon, continuing into the evening. So even though we're not seeing much right now, unfortunately, it's been pretty sunny after some morning showers and storms, so we've got a lot of energy building in the atmosphere, and it is something that we could see this potential for more storms like this throughout the area as we go later on in the day. But let's jump back into our radar here. So here's the storm, and I zoomed in a little bit too far there, but as you can see, actually, let's do this. Let's zoom in, and let's see if we can get some roads and some streets going here. We'll drag this back over. There's Gullet there, Greenfield, and it looks like our area of rotation is going to be right around here. It looks, what is that? Centenary Road and Evans Lane. So right in this ballpark here is where we're expecting that area of rotation, that possible tornado to be. And as you can see, there's Gullet right there, right on the southern edge. This is where we're expecting to see some large hail, some very heavy rain, but it looks like this is heading right for Gullett there. Might stay just north of Greenfield, but certainly getting very close now. So we want to make sure that if you're in Gullett right now and in Greenfield, that you are inside, you are in your safe place, away from windows and protected, because this storm is continuing to push, and it's getting real close to you right now. Let's go back to our radar products here, and we'll take a look at our velocity and see there's that area of rotation right there. Like I said, just east of some of these more populated areas. And this is going to continue to push off to the east. So let's zoom out. Let's put a brand new track on this here. Let's see if we can maybe get some of the more of these cities in the path of this storm here. And there's a brand new, there we go, brand new radar scan there. But as you take a look, it doesn't look like we're seeing too many cities being picked up by the radar there. That is our tornado warning there. Let me try our other indicator here. So like I said, this is sitting just west of Gullett now. As we continue to look here, Truman 307, that's going to be a little earlier than that, I think. At this point, I think if you're in Truman, let me go back to our radar here, you're going to be seeing this storm probably a little closer to 3 o'clock, because that storm path that we just drew, not quite taking into account the full speed of this storm here. But like I said, there's that area that we're keeping a close eye on for possible tornado. There's Gullett. You're going to be seeing this really in the next couple of minutes. So if you're not inside already, get inside. We don't want people trying to get out and look at this storm and see what it's capable of, because that's when you can get caught. That's when things start to get dangerous there. But like I said, there's Truman. You're going to be seeing this probably a little bit before 3 o'clock. There's Husky, Promised Land. You're probably going to be seeing that. And there's the newest scan. And this is interesting because as we zoom in here, it looks like that area of rotation, it's starting to break up a little bit. But let's go back to our velocity product here, and we can see there's that area of rotation. It doesn't look as defined right now on the actual radar, but you can see still there's that green and that red that indicate those winds that are kind of swirling around each other. Let's see if we can get an actual speed reading with our radar using this. And you're still seeing some brighter greens in this area that would indicate some stronger winds. The radar, though, looks like trying to tick back on this just a little bit. So 36 miles an hour doesn't sound that impressive. But at the same time, that might be hitting the higher parts of the storm. Remember, the radar we're tracking this with is in northern Shelby County, so this is a good ways out, and it may be overshooting the strongest part of the storm, which is going to be closer to the ground. So let me see, let me go to this and see if we can switch over to our Little Rock radar. That might give us a little better indicator of what's going on. And once again, this is, it looks a little jumbled right now. It looks like the storm hopefully trying to break apart just a little bit there. But as we go to our velocity with our Little Rock radar, yeah, that looks a little more jumbled there as well. So we'll go back to our Memphis radar. That seems to have the best handle on this at the moment there. But as you take a look, this is our area of circulation now starting to push into Gullett, Greenfield. So you need to be inside right now. You're running out of time as far as this storm is concerned, and this is going to continue to push off to the east there. But like I said, areas back behind the storm, you are now in the clear, so that is good there. McDaniel, Weiner, and even Harrisburg, you're technically on the edge of that storm, but it looks like this is going to stay to your north. So the good news there is, looks like you are going to be okay. But here is what it looks like right now on the radar. Let me step off again. Like I said, it's one of the situations where we could be getting information minute by minute here with the Weather Service. Obviously, with this storm warning now in effect here for a few moments, hopefully we've got emergency managers, folks like that, out keeping tabs on this, making sure that we know exactly where the storm is going and what it is doing. But right now, it looks like we're just keeping a close eye on social media. That's where we've been getting a lot of our ground confirmation with these storms. But if you're just joining us, we do have a tornado warning in effect for Poinsett County. This is going to go until 2:45, so about another 13 minutes or so. And as you can see on the radar here, the storm starting to morph just kind of into a giant cluster there, which obviously would be potential good news as far as that tornado goes, because earlier we had a pretty defined hook, which would indicate where that tornado is at. Here we go. We zoom in here. So that center of circulation right now, right over State Highway 1 between Gullet and Greenfield, this is the area that we're keeping a close eye on. So as you can see, Walnut Grove Corner just to the east there, Promised Land, Maple Grove, all still in the path of this storm, but it is heading in your direction. And right now, that circulation, that potential tornado is sitting directly over Greenfield and Gullet. So that is something we're going to have to keep a very close eye on. And it's continuing to hold together enough to where the Weather Service is keeping this warning in place. So that is something, folks might be wondering, if the storm is falling apart, what are we doing on air? We want to stay on as long as this warning is in place, because as long as there's still a chance that there's some dangerous weather moving through parts of the Mid-South, we want to make sure that people are aware of it and that they are able to get to safety if they are in the path of this storm. Let me jump back on here because I am starting to notice this secondary storm behind our tornado warning starting to get a little bit of development here, maybe another potential area of circulation. So this is something we'll have to keep a close eye on, but right now, all eyes on this storm right now moving through northern Poinsett County as this tornado warning will continue for about another 10 minutes. Let me put another track on this because, like I said, this is one of those situations where it's continuing to move off to the east, and we want to make sure that, especially our friends here in northeastern Poinsett County, you know when this storm is going to be knocking on your doorstep there, because we want to make sure you have as much time to get prepared and to be safe as possible. Okay, this is a more accurate storm path with this current system here, Truman. 2:57. So a little bit before 3 o'clock, you've got about 20 minutes right now before the heart of this storm. You're going to notice the heavy rain, probably some hail ahead of it, but any potential tornado, you've got about 20 minutes before that area of circulation gets close to you. So plenty of time to get inside, get into a safe place there. As you can see, Lepanto, that is going to be farther east there, outside of the tornado warning. That's about 3:17, so you've got about a half hour, 40 minutes there. But unfortunately, with some of these much smaller towns, the radar not picking that up. But I can tell you, just based off what we're seeing on the radar and just the general path of this, if you are out ahead of this storm here, so Husky, Maple Grove, as we mentioned, even up in Shady Grove, you're probably going to be seeing this in the next 10 to possibly 15 minutes. That circulation right now over Gullet and Greenfield, so you certainly want to make sure you're inside and safe right there. As far as some of our other concerns with this storm, let's jump right back into our radar products here. This is a bit of good news here, it looks like. As you can see with our hail tracker, it looks like the storm is starting to drop off as far as that hail threat goes. Those darker colors, those blacks, would indicate much larger hail, much more damaging hail. But when our last couple of scans here, those colors starting to lighten a little bit, not quite as wide of a coverage area as well. So the good news there is that hail threat may be coming down just a little bit, but you're probably still going to be seeing some hail with this storm, so we want to make sure that you're not caught out in that either. Here's a look at our velocity here, and we're still picking up some stronger winds, maybe just south of Greenfield there. Let me see if I can zoom in on this and get you a more accurate reading here with our radar. But right now it looks like these winds still strong enough to where a tornado and even strong winds, a very real possibility here. But let's see if we can find maybe one of those stronger cells here and find where we're seeing some of those stronger winds. 45 miles an hour just south of Greenfield. So that's picked up a little bit since our last reading on the radar there. Doesn't sound very impressive, but like I said, this is only a certain part of the storm, and certainly we could be seeing much stronger winds where the radar is not able to hit this, because unfortunately this is a little ways out from our Millington site here. But let me clear that out there. We'll go back to our radar. And like I said, right now we're just keeping a very close eye. It's a little more difficult to tell right now, but you can see there's a little bit of a corner there. This is the area that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on for that possible tornado as it continues to move off to the east. like I said, unfortunately right now you're still in the heart of it here, Gullett, Greenfield, as this continues to move off to the east. If you're just north of this and some of this heavier rain, this is probably where you're seeing some of that larger hail there as well as you get up by Mulligan, maybe even up into Cary. That hail core, that is going to be moving. Truman, you are certainly going to be seeing that probably a little closer to 3 o'clock there. Husky, you're going to be seeing that probably around 2:45 or so. But like I said, multiple threats with this storm that we continue to just keep a very close eye on. And then, like I said, we also have that second storm behind here, and it looks like this is maybe starting to develop here just a little bit more as well. So let me see. You can see some greens here, some reds here, so maybe some wide, kind of weak circulation trying to develop. But this is something we'll have to keep an eye on because especially if this storm ahead sort of fizzles out, that might open up the door for this one to continue developing and possibly, oh, there's the new scan there. So yes, right now, just some very weak, broad rotation with this. So that, not so much of a concern, and hopefully with this storm out ahead of it that is under the tornado warning, hopefully that'll keep this one from developing anymore. But unfortunately, we are still dealing with an active tornado warning here for Poinsett, and it does extend north into Craighead County, but this warning going for about another 7 minutes. So as long as this warning's in place, we're going to stay on the air with you, let you know where this storm is, where it's heading, and hopefully we will not need to cut back in later in the day. But just to give you a heads up that if we do see any tornado warnings for the Mid-South, we will be cutting in, providing that coverage. And then if we see any severe thunderstorm warnings, especially across the Memphis metro, anything serious, would include portions of Crittenden, DeSoto counties there as well. We'll make sure to cut in for that as well, since that is the heart of our DMA. A lot of people impacted potentially by storms like that. But here is the latest radar scan here. Like I said, we're just keeping a close eye on that possible area of rotation there. And it does look like this is trying to weaken just a little bit here. Like I said, what we're looking at here are wind directions. The red would be winds moving away from our Millington radar, the green's winds moving towards. So you can see there's a little bit of that gray area in there now, so that would indicate that these winds here are really starting to weaken, and that area of rotation is becoming very broad, very wide, and that would indicate that this storm is weakening. There's still some rotation with it, but it's not as tight and as impactful as we saw earlier when this warning was first issued. So that is certainly some good news there. But even if that tornado threat is going down, like I said, these brighter greens here you're seeing just south of Greenfield, those would indicate strong, damaging straight line winds. So unfortunately, this is still one of those situations where you know, even if that tornado threat is going down, there's still other threats we have to keep into account, whether that be damaging winds, large hail, and those will be the two main concerns for today. Like I said, that tornado threat really going to be isolated. Hopefully this is the only real area that we're keeping an eye on here as far as tornado threat goes, but as storms become a little more widespread later on in the day, we're going to see the possibility for more warnings across the Mid-South. All right, let me throw this back on the radar here, and then I'm going to step off real quick and see if the Weather Service has any new information here. So, like I said, this area right here looks like that center of circulation now possibly moving just east of Gullett and Greenfield, so that would be great news for you guys. I don't want you to get out of your safe place just yet, but it looks like the heart of that storm now starting to push away from you just a little bit. But let me see what the Weather Service here is saying. Right now, looks like we're just continuing to monitor social media. Unfortunately, one of those days where, you know, if we had storm chasers out, maybe this was not an area that we're keeping a close eye on. Maybe they thought the worst threat for severe weather was going to be elsewhere. But still, as you can see, this storm on radar still looking pretty impressive here as this warning here expected to wrap up in about the next 5 minutes. So good news, like I said, Weiner, you are now clear of this storm. Harrisburg, this storm going to stay to your north. Same with Landers over into Cassidy. You're still close enough in the path of the storm that we don't want to clear you just yet, but like I said, Weiner down to Harrisburg, you guys are going to be just fine as this storm is now moving off to the east and away from you there. But as far as storms potentially in the path of this tornado that we're seeing on the radar, certainly Promised Land up into Husky. Truman, you might stay just far enough north to where you're out of the direct path of this storm, but certainly you're going to see that heavy rain, that hail threat there. But as you can see over into eastern portions of Poinsett County there, Donick, Tulot, Cassidy, all potentially still could see tornadic winds out of the storm as it continues to push off to the east. So let's go back to our center of circulation. So right now it looks like it's probably right there. It's not that strong, but we're still seeing enough of it on the radar here. I'm guessing that is why the Weather Service is deciding to keep on with this warning. They just don't want to take any chances and have this maybe re-strengthen and then having to reissue, and it gets very confusing after that there. But as we take a look at some of our new storm reports now coming in, we have out of Lawrence County, Walnut Ridge, wind gusts of about 51 miles an hour. So that's going to be probably more par for the course with our storms as we get later into the afternoon, is that high wind threat and also a large hail threat. In fact, let's see if we can see any potential hail with this. Like I said, it looks like that's starting to break up just a little bit there on the radar, which is good news there. But let me give you, before this warning runs out here, one more look at the path of this storm. And like I said, it is really starting to break up now. So that is good news as far as the radar is concerned. That would indicate that the storm is weakening and that tornado threat's going to be allowed to pass here in about a minute or so without any new warnings being issued. As you can see, Truman right around 3 o'clock, Lepanto 3:21. So I do want to point this out because it looks like this is some good news here. The Weather Service has issued a new severe thunderstorm warning. That's going to go until 3:15. So let me put it back on the radar here, see if we can zoom out here just a little bit. And sure enough, there's that warning. And as I step on... Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up here in just a minute once this tornado warning clears in about the next minute. But I do want to point out, this is some good news here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's that orange outline here extending over into the rest of northeastern Poinsett County. That is a severe thunderstorm warning that's going to go until 3:15. So right now, it looks like the Weather Service is going to allow this tornado warning to expire in about the next minute. But this storm's still strong enough to produce some very damaging winds, some large hail, and there is still, I will admit, just a weak tornado threat with this. So it looks like it's 2:45 now. They're going to allow that warning to expire. So what we could do in the booth is we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming. Like I said, if we do see any more tornado warnings throughout the day for any parts of the Mid-South, we'll jump back on. We'll give you the latest information. Any significant severe thunderstorm warnings, especially across the Memphis Metro, we'll break in for that. Otherwise, you can get the latest information on localmemphis.com. Or you can follow us on social media, Local Memphis, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also follow me on Twitter at Local24Chase. But for right now, active weather day. Be prepared for later on. Severe thunderstorm watch in effect until 9 o'clock this evening. We'll have the latest coming up on Local 24 News at 5. Otherwise, we'll get you back to your regular scheduled programming.
For continuing coverage on the severe weather alert, log on to localmemphis.com. Like Local Memphis on Facebook and follow at Local Memphis on Twitter.
Trains and the bus